All right, how's it going, y'all? Okay, so today, scoop my chair up a little bit here. Today we're going to be talking about, are herbs safe to use? Short answer, yeah, they are. Yes, they're safe to use. There are always going to be little things here and there. So some of the top things are like maybe you're on some prescription medication. Okay, there are some herbs that can interact with certain medications. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. Just depending on what you are taking medication for or what you are working with an herb to try to achieve. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. You just need to, ask your doctor. Always ask your doctor before working with something that you don't normally work with. So if it's like, I don't know, if you are drinking cinnamon tea every single day and then you get, put on some prescription medication. Um, Ask your doctor and just be like, hey, I drink cinnamon tea every day. Is that going to be a problem? Is it going to be a problem with this medication? You always want to check. However, is working with herbs going to kill you? No, probably not, unless you're allergic, which even in that case, you would have to take herbs in extremely high doses for anything crazy to happen. So they're very safe. If they weren't safe to work with, our ancestors would not have been working with them, right? I mean, like, just put on your critical thinking cap for a minute. If our ancestors have been working with cinnamon and basil and thyme and I don't know, other stuff for thousands of years, why would we stop now? Just because we have, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, but my cat is clawing at something. If Why would we stop now, right? Herbs have been in our lives, in our species, for thousands and thousands of years. Animals eat them, like animals use them for medicinal things, whether they know it or not, they do, and we do too. So, okay. One of the biggest reasons people think that herbs are going to hurt them for some reason is like bogus research that is done. And I'm not going to say that all research is bogus because it's not. I am going to say that if you are reading a clinical study, you really need to pay attention to what you're reading because most of the time, and I want to backtrack really quick because I didn't know that this was a thing until somebody told me about it, and they were like, hey, in a lot of clinical studies done on herbs, they're not testing the whole herb, right? And I was like, they're not testing the whole herb. What are you talking about? Like, there was a study done on sage. They were testing sage. What were they testing if they weren't testing sage? And it turns out they're not testing the whole herb or the whole plant. They're testing constituents or compounds or chemicals that are in the plant, which is a completely different thing. Like, okay, yes, the compound is part of the plant, but it's not the plant. There are lots and lots and lots of chemicals and compounds and all sorts of stuff that make up this plant. Taking out one and testing that is not really fair. Like it's not really fair to the whole plant, right? I guess it would be kind of like if somebody plucked one hair off of your head and was like, oh, this is Ashley right here, this one hair, this is all of her, this is everything she is right here. No, not true. This is all of me. I'm all right here. One little hair on my head is not the same as me. right? So it's really important to understand that. So the importance of that, I don't want to get too like deep into this, but basically this is what they're doing in research, right? So they're saying, and this is where a lot of like the pop culture, this plant is really good for you, or this plant is really bad for you, stuff comes from. So what they're doing is they're taking a plant, they're extracting a chemical from it or a compound or whatever, and they're going, okay, now we're going to test this effect on rats. However, they don't give the rat that compound in the amount that they extract it. So, sage, for example, there was a study done on sage, and they extracted the chemical compound of thujone. Thujone, they found when you extract it and like give it to rats at very, very, very high doses, causes seizures. So now there's a bunch of people that think that sage causes seizures. It doesn't. It does not cause seizures. Thujone does if it's administered at extremely high doses. Now, these are doses that we would never come across in real life. Like, you would have to eat 100 pounds of sage. That's a made up number, by the way. But you would have to eat a lot of sage to have that amount of the compound in your bloodstream at any given time. And I'm not talking about, 100 pounds of sage over your lifetime. I'm talking about in one sitting. You would have to eat that much or less, maybe 10 pounds. But still, that's an unrealistic amount of sage to eat at one time. And then you would have the amount of whatever they put into the rats, right? That caused seizures, which was the chemical thujone. So it's very unrealistic. The data is, I'm not going to say that it's skewed, but it's just misinterpreted by people who read it, right? So the scientists are like, oh, we did this with this compound, and here you go. We're going to say that sage is really bad for you now because the compound that we extracted causes seizures. And then everybody on the internet is like, sage is bad for you. Stop eating it. Oh my God. No, not true. It's not true at all. You can eat it and be totally fine. So when you're doing research on your herbs, make sure that you know what you're reading. Make sure that you're reading all the details, because there's so many times that they do that, right? So to wrap it up, yes, herbs are fine to work with. There are some places where you do have to be cautious, like if you're taking medicine or anything that might interact with the herbs, or any herbs that might interact with your medicine. There's not a whole lot that do that, but before you go making any changes, just make sure you talk to your doctor, and do your research and be a critical thinker and ask questions, right? Make sure that you're getting the proper information and not some weird skewed stuff. So, the end. Goodbye.